Welcome to this third adventure tourism webinar. I'm very excited to have you join us again and to explore adventure tourism with us. And today we're going to focus on cultural tourism, sustainable tourism, and the role of the guide. When we talk about adventure tourism, many people always think about high adrenaline activities, and rightfully so. But cultural tourism is actually also, let's say, a subdomain of adventure tourism, and there's also a lot of crossover possibilities with other types of adventure tourism activities and other tourism activities at large. My name is Alexander Bongers, and I don't know whether you were present here during one of the previous webinars already, but at least I do see quite some familiar names and faces. But this session is going to take about 2 hours, and in this session we're going to discuss a few different things. So we're going to look into different tips and tricks on how to offer great cultural tourism activities. We're going to explore how you can make your tourism activity more sustainable from a social perspective. We're going to look at the role of the guide in cultural tourism, but also adventure tourism at large, and how the role of the guide in these types of tourism differ from, let's say, the classic safari-based tourism. And we're going to suggest a way on how you can train others in these topics. And just like the during the other webinars, I would like to ask you to please keep your microphones muted unless we ask you otherwise, because that will make it a bit more orderly, let's say. And we'll use the chat to make it as interactive as possible. So quite a few times we'll ask you to share your opinion, and we'll ask you to do so in the chat, and then we'll be reading it out loud. And so if you have any questions, if you have any comments, feel free to make use of the chat. And also this webinar is recorded, so you can watch it back later on, and we will let me mute everyone. So this recording is will be shared on the Adventure Tourism website later on, and that way you can also share it with anybody that you feel might be interested in this. So just to introduce myself and my two sidekicks. My name is Lex, and I'm the coordinator of Adventure Tourism Uganda, and here I'm together with my two colleagues, Priscilla and Maureen, and they'll be allowing everybody into this room, and they'll be doing some back-end communication. But I'm also very excited actually to welcome the two guest speakers of today. I've worked with both of them for quite a while now, and I'm really excited for this. For those of you that were present during the first webinar, you're already familiar with Adrine, and today we're going to hear more from her work with training adventure guides and female tour guides. So Adrine, you're very welcome. And today we're also going to have Theo join us. I think many of you might be familiar with Kara-Tunga. Kara-Tunga doing wonderful work in the northeastern region of Uganda. Theo, why don't you introduce yourself a bit, so you can unmute yourself and share a bit.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Lex. I'm really excited also to be here. Thank you for the invitation also, Lex and the team and Adventure Tourism Uganda. My name's, as you see, Theo Mordovos. The names are from two continents. One side is Netherlands, and the other side is here the northeast of Uganda. I'm the co-founder of Kara-Tunga, together with my mother, and also I'm the director of our foundation. And we've been developing, I would say, community tourism in the northeast of Uganda, a place that's been inaccessible for many decades, and trying to develop, to create opportunities, economical, socio-economic opportunities for our communities, not only the ones who went to school, but also the ones living in rural villages, to improve their livelihoods through tourism. So that's in short me, and I'm looking forward to learn from you guys today, as well to share our story. But yeah, I'm happy to interact. So thank you so much, Lex and Priscilla.
Yeah, thank you, Theo. Adrine, why don't you introduce yourself as well? Not sure if she's if our connection is well. I'm trying to ask her to unmute. Adrine, can you hear me? Well, let's get back to Adrine. Let me just briefly mention the Adventure Tourism Uganda project. I think many of you have been here during one of the previous webinars, so I won't go into detail into that. But I just wanted to mention that Adventure Tourism Uganda is a program of different tourism companies that jointly aim to professionalize Uganda's adventure tourism sector. And we do this through product development, capacity building, and marketing. And we get some support from the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, and the rest of the funding is brought in by the companies themselves. And this program runs until this year. And in fact, this webinar series is actually the last part of the Adventure Tourism Uganda project, at least in its current form. So these are the companies that are participating in this. Kara-Tunga is one of them, but also Matoka Tours, Run Kapchorwa and Home of Friends in Kapchorwa. There's a cycling company, Red Dirt Uganda. There's a hiking company, bergwandelen.com, and UG Motorbike, and also my own organization called Eye Opener Works, and I am the coordinator. But I would actually just like to know from everybody here who they are, and so please use the chat to actually introduce yourself, and then I will read it out loud to everyone. So just tell me, who are you? Where are you based? Which company do you represent? Yeah, then I'm very curious to hear more about all of you. So let me just wait for some responses in the chat to emerge. So from Saikat village in Uganda, there is Meke Mwabingwa, if I'm not butchering the name. Nice to meet you, Meke. I've heard many stories about your village, and unfortunately I've not been there yet, but I heard it's absolutely beautiful. So please correct me if I'm wrong, but it is somewhere in between Queen Elizabeth National Park and, let's say, Gaborone district, isn't it? Near where there's also beautiful waterfalls, if I'm correct. So great to have you here. So there's also Nandutu Esther from Mbale. Welcome, Esther. Birungi Florence, representing Sunny Outdoors Uganda. Well, that's great that there's somebody from Sunny Outdoors as well. So for those of you who don't know what Sunny Outdoors is, it is actually and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it is a adventure tourism shop, or where you can buy materials for adventure tourism, and it's one of the few in Uganda. So that's great. Welcome, Florence. So there's also Stefan, co-owner, Chikonko Lodge, Lake Albert, passion for sustainability, environment, and peace building. Good to have you here, Stefan. Welcome. If I remember correctly, you were also part of the first webinar, so good to have you back. Frank, based in Kampala, represents Frank Tours Uganda, now driving to Murchison Falls National Parks, but I'm following. I think Frank is always on the road. So that's great. Theo and I know Frank very well, as we've cycled with him in many places actually. Tadeusz Ayebale from Chibale National Park, Isunga Cultural Community Tours Association. Good to have you back as well, Tadeusz. I think you were also present during the previous webinars. So good to have you. So for everyone else that hasn't introduced him or herself yet, please let me know. I'm hearing an echo. And then Paul was saying, good morning, everyone. I'm Paul, based in Mount Elgin, Kapchorwa, Home of Friends guide. Well, that's good to have you here as well, Paul. So as I mentioned, Home of Friends is also one of the companies that we work with in this adventure tourism program. Theo, I would like to get back to you and please actually unmute your microphone, as I muted everybody again. But just a general question: what do you like about your work with Kara-Tunga? I've been working with you for many years, and I've never seen you grumpy. So what is it that you like about your work?
Yeah, thanks, Lex. Good question, actually. There's so many things what I like about it. That's why you don't see me so often grumpy. But I think the most important thing for me is to see my home region being portrayed as a beautiful place, and to be able to share our culture with people in Uganda, but also outside. That really makes me proud, maybe even not only happy, but just proud of what we are achieving. But also seeing our youth, our rural communities in our traditional villages making extra income from community tourism, cultural tourism. And that's really something that supports them in the dry seasons, when, for example, the food reserves are out of stock, and also our guides here that are maybe secondary school leavers who had no jobs opportunities within the region, that are now actually proud site guides and are taking around people from all over the world, and really being proud of where they're from, and also even going to the extent that they are trying to learn more about their heritage. And that makes me also just I think happy and satisfied of the work we are doing. And I think that's also in general what cultural tourism makes me so much an ambassador for it, because it really makes people from any colors or walks of life to benefit from tourism, and to build their resilience with an alternative income source. And that just makes me really excited, and makes me work many hours at night and wake up early in the morning, even though sometimes you think, oh, what are we going to do today? But yeah, every time thinking about the impact we have makes me just wake up with a big smile every day. So yeah, that's most important.
Great. And Theo, so with Kara-Tunga, you generally focused on the Karamoja region, right? Where do you see tourism going in Karamoja, and also where, like, do you think that the type of activities that you do in Kara-Tunga, could these things also be done in other regions in Uganda?
Yeah, no, good question. I think, of course, when we started Kara-Tunga, we also looking for what is our unique selling point. How can we make a place that nobody wants to go to attractive? And that was, of course, one of the unique selling points we have here is our culture. So unique compared to other cultures within Uganda. And also it's a living culture. We many of the communities are still living and proudly are also how to call it, sharing this with others. So that was really, I think, the starting point for developing tourism here, to show people one of those unique selling points. But in addition, also based on the landscape, etc., where we are. But I think if people Google for Kara-Tunga, they always find our beautiful people. And then from there on, also look, okay, so what else can I do here? So it was really, I think, a good attraction for many of the first visitors. The activities we do are quite many, because when we started actually developing tourism here from scratch, we simply thought, hey, people want to hike a mountain, but actually people are also quite interested in, hey, who are the people living here? What are their traditions? How do they come about their architecture? What is their traditional knowledge about the environment, the traditional herbs? How do they marry? How do they initiate? How do you become an elder, for example, in a community? That really occupied the guests so much that we slowly started to developing village walks. People are staying with the community for more than a day. Something we also motivate people to do, to not just come there for 1 hour and disappear. But the more time you spend with the community, also the more you will learn, the more you will take also with you, and the more the community can also learn from you. So people do homestays, people sleep for a night with the community. We have back in the days, we are now bringing it back, also people staying with the cattle keepers. I think that's for many people the most unique experience beside the gorillas in Uganda. I've been hearing from many travelers. And this, I think, are things that people also resonate with people. You can climb mountains, you can look for lions, you can go and have a wildlife safari anywhere in Africa with wildlife. But to interact with a community and to have this unique experience, I think that's something that really touches with human beings. And that's also something that we're hearing from travelers coming to Uganda for 21-day packages, and travel agents asking them, what do you remember from your trip? That people say, that night, for example, in the cattle camp in Kara-Tunga and the gorillas. So I think that's really an opportunity for also other colleagues in Uganda to tap into, and to see how you can combine not only the wildlife, but also having people having these rich experiences with your communities. And sometimes it's just a matter of spending time together with a community and just being with them and participating in the daily life. I think that's what touches people most, than having a really organized 1 hour experience and then disappearing again. It can be fantastic, but sometimes just participating in daily life of a shepherd, milking the cows in the morning, going for grazing, or sleeping in the evening, making a porridge in the morning with the community, grinding the sorghum. I think that are the experiences people actually are more touched by. So if you look at Kara-Tunga, we have so many different communities here, and that also makes us sometimes excited to make people travel through the entire region, not only come to the middle of the region, visit a village, and then go to the highlights of Kidepo Valley National Park and continue to Murchison. We are really motivating people to visit these different communities and learn what are the differences, what are the similarities, taste the traditional foods of them, and then enjoy, of course, those different landscapes they live in, and spend more time with the community. Because going to a wildlife park, yes, there's some contribution Uganda's government does based on your visits, but that money goes to the government on local level. Again, it needs to go to a project. But if you go to a community, you book a guide, you go to a village, you sleep for a night, that money goes directly to the community. So that makes you at least sure that if you want to benefit your money to go benefit the community, that are the experiences you should include in your itinerary to Uganda or anywhere else, I think, in the world. So that's a bit my idea. But I think it's a must. It's a thing where the world is going now. People want to go and see the gorillas, but I think people are so much longing for this connection with other human beings. And I think when you meet somebody from the village called maybe Lokiru, and he's told you about his life, how he grew up. He takes you herding with a shepherd for an afternoon, and you learn how to select the traditional fruits from the bush and brush your teeth with a local stick. I think that's something you might tell your friends, rather than the lion you saw and another lion you saw later and another lion you saw tomorrow. So I think these are the things we should consider when designing packages as tour operators.
Yeah, thanks, Theo. I fully agree with you, and I think that is also a nice bridge into the next the next topic. But first, Adrine, I don't know if you can hear me now, and also unmute your microphone.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, perfect. Welcome, Adrine.
Thank you, Lex. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Adrine.
Sorry, I missed to introduce myself. My name is Adrine Nankunda. I am working as a tourist guide, stroke tour leader, and I got a privilege of working as a coordinator for projects that were running under Matoke Tours, that is the Adventure Tourism Uganda, and Female Tourist Guiding. Yes, thank you, Lex, for inviting me, and going straight to the question, what do I like about training guides? Wow. What I like about training guides, especially female, it's so satisfying, it is so fulfilling that you touch somebody's life, you transform it, someone gains skills and actually starts earning from the skills acquired. Then also, I like training guides because I've been a guide for a long time, and I mean, that's what I can do better. I feel joy to transfer the skills I've gained over time, share the experience, the challenges to someone who is trying to make their way in the tourism guiding profession. And lastly, I love knowing that I have done the best and I can help people develop new skills, change their mindset, change their behaviors, and actually they align them in the tourism and start offering a quality experience to the tourists that come to Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrine. And so also a question to you is, in the training of guides that you do, what type of guides are you training? Like, is it mostly safari-based guiding that you train them, or is it also cultural tourism and adventure tourism?
So, Alex, to understand your question very well, are you meaning the trainings that were conducted under Matoke Tours?
Yes, but also at large. I can imagine that maybe the type of training is maybe different for different niches in tourism, isn't it? But maybe you also want to make sure that every guide has sort of like an all-round skill set, or how should I see that?
Yes, like an all-round guide, a general guide. Yes, one of the qualities one of the key roles of a guide is to interpret the resources, everything, every attraction, everything that they come along. So you find because of this role, you cannot, even if you are a bird guide or a mountaineering guide or a cultural guide, you cannot restrict yourself to only that particular niche. Yes, you have to understand and master that niche, but alongside, you have to also acquire knowledge about the surrounding. For example, if you are a nature interpreter, a wildlife interpreter, you find yourself, you have to understand more of culture, because these animals, the plants, the environment, they also have a cultural perspective. Then also you find birds, you cannot just say I'm specializing in birds and I will not look there in culture or what. You find there are there is an interconnection of things, and at the end of that day, you find yourself you have to run everything. So you may start a training, for example, the bird guides, but along the way, you find touching other things, the landscape, because birds are distributed considering the vegetation, the topography, the type of food they eat. So you may have to go into trees also, and the vegetation. And so the kind of trainings, specifically for Matoke, we've been doing is they were the female tourist guides training. In Uganda, the job of tour guiding has been mainly male dominated until of recent, up to like 2013, when we got the first female driver guide. Because of this, Matoke came up with an initiative to train females so that they can also join, they can also explore opportunities in the tourist guiding profession. And we realized in the course of the training that actually there are girls out there who are passionate, who are ready to commit, and can even perform better than men. But the challenge is they don't know where to start from.
Sorry, it looks like your
Join the
line
industry, the training, and sorry?
Sorry, your line was breaking for a moment, but I think now it's back. Yes, continue.
Okay. So under Matoke Tours, we had two cohorts. The first cohort, we had 12 people, and the second cohort, we have 20 people. In total, we trained 32 people. And the way the programs were structured, we had each cohort was 5 months. The first month was class-based training. The second month was, the second batch was class-based training, which took 1 month. Then immediate after the class-based training, we took students on an exposure trip for them to have an experience outside in the field and check out different attractions that tourists come to see. We visited Maction Falls National Park. We did game drives, boat trips, nature walks. We also visited Chivale National Park and did chimpanzee tracking, which was a highlight for the students. Most of them had never imagined them getting themselves getting an opportunity for chimpanzee tracking. Then we did community visits. After the exposure trip, we took trainees on work-based learning. Here, mainly they were attached onto tour companies, and they were taken in the field, tagged along with a senior guide on a trip with clients on board. And our trainees got hands-on experience on what it means being on a guided tour, how to prepare clients, what type of information to pass on to clients, and how to do it. After that, we brought them back to class for a recap. They did an assessment conducted by USAGA using the DIT structure and graduated. And it has been a life-changing experience for all of our trainees. After most of the trainees, immediately they got jobs and started working, and they are now in the field happily working.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so most of them have found a job now.
Yes, yes.
Great. And later on in this webinar, I'd like to ask you also to elaborate a little bit more about what it is being a female in working as a guide. But just as a little bit of a bridge to the next section, are most of them now working as generalist tour guides who travel along with the guides? Sorry, with the tourists to different regions, or are also some of them working as site guides, being focusing on one specific location?
Well, most of them are working as general safari guides, taking tours all over Uganda. And actually, after the training, some of them went ahead and acquired driving courses, and they can now drive tours by themselves and take them all over Uganda. And some are still working as site guides at different sites, because when we're concluding the training, we encourage them that even if they haven't gotten a job for safari guiding, they can still find a way of keeping themselves busy by attaching themselves to different sites so that they keep in the system, they acquire more knowledge and their way into the safari guiding job.
Okay. Cool. No, that's well. First of all, congratulations on this project. Of course, I know quite a bit about it myself, but I think you all did wonderful work, and I really hope that that guiding as a profession becomes a more diversified and a more inclusive profession
Sure.
in Uganda. Thank you. So let's move on to specifically to the topic of cultural tourism, and I just want to put a little bit of a disclaimer here. In many places, when you ask people about cultural tourism, they might think about old buildings and musea and monuments and like specific heritage sites. And I mean, that is part of cultural tourism, but for the sake of this webinar, we will focus mostly on intangible cultural aspects. So cultural tourism in the sense of storytelling, music, traditions, food, those type of things, and we will specifically focus on community-based activities. And I think Uganda has so much potential for these kinds of activities, and I think there's two reasons for that. First of all, the fact that generally people are incredibly welcoming and speak English very well, so it's easy to get in contact with Ugandans. At least that is definitely my own experience. But also the cultural diversity within Uganda. Like every let's say 100 kilometers, there's a chance of ending up in a different language area with different habits, different cultures, different traditions, different stories. So that is one of the reasons why I believe Uganda has so much potential for these type of cultural tourism activities. But I would like to ask to everyone in the audience to please make use of the chat and tell me, when you think of great cultural tourism activities in Uganda, can you come up with examples? I'm curious to hear, like, what are your own experiences with cultural tourism in Uganda? Are there specific activities or specific locations or specific initiatives that you feel are worth mentioning in that regard? So please use the chat for that right now. And in the meantime, I saw a question from Stefan in the chat about how to attract people to visit some of the lesser known areas in Uganda. And I think we will, I think it's a very good question. And I think specifically Theo might have some things to share on that, but let's do that later on. But please use the chat now to mention some of the cultural tourism activities in Uganda that you believe are particularly exciting. So let me just wait for the chat and see whether there's initiatives coming up. In the meantime, let me also share some of my own experiences. I think I think one of the regions in Uganda that has so much cultural diversity is actually the whole Mount Elgon region, where you have quite a few different tribes living in a short distance to each other, and many of those tribes are not related at all. So there's Bantu tribes, there's Nilotic tribes, etc. And I think in and around Mount Elgon, there's quite a number of nice cultural tourism activities taking place, and of course they are also often combined with, let's say, coffee tours or other kinds of agritourism activities. And they're also combined with hikes up the mountain. Let me see. So someone is saying, I think the northeast, so Dishu and Karamoja, is a boiling pot, quite effortlessly the best place for a fully immersive, unadulterated cultural experience. Yeah, I think Theo would be quite happy to hear that. And yes, I agree. Let me see. Are there any other cultural tourism activities in Uganda that you that we believe are worth mentioning? So Emma is saying some of the examples of exciting cultural tourism experience include Baganda cultural dance, music, food, sex education, bar club. This has been one of the best experiences in cultural tourism at Ewafe Cultural Village in Uganda. To be honest, so also Paul Lubega is also saying Ewafe cultural experience. To be honest, I don't know about that experience myself. I'm curious to hear more about it. Maybe Emma, could you maybe unmute your microphone and maybe share a little bit about Ewafe Cultural Village? Is that possible?
Hello.
Hello, Emma. Nice to meet
you. Nice to meet you too. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I'm called Makwa Emma, and I'm also a tourism student at Visima University, Faculty of Sciences. But one of the exciting tourism experience as far as culture, it is the Baganda culture. Talk about at Ewafe. Ewafe is a cultural center in Uganda, located in central Uganda, that is Mukono. Whereby it offers, the cultural experience, the traditional feel of Uganda. Talk about the cultural dance, the food, the sex education. Talk about the traditional activities like, the baka cloth, the traditional industries, whereby you learn about the cultural cloth like the baka cloth. Tell you how it was being used in ancient times, and to make it exciting, it looks at talk about the sex education sessions to teach the young and the female. It's about uplifting the culture. So it has been one of the best cultural experience that I've ever had. That's the Wafe Cultural Village. That's what I can say about that. Thank you, Rogers.
Okay.
Alexander.
Thank you so much, Emma. I really appreciate it. No, so let me definitely go there, and indeed, I mean, I think most of the major tribes in Uganda have have spectacular cultural heritage, and the Baganda people are definitely included in that. And it's especially also that, for example, that what you're saying, the sex education as well as the bar club is something that is really fascinating for visitors. I also have to think of some of the cultural activities in the Ankole area myself as well, of course, with the cows and the milking traditions and all that. Let me see. So Paul was also saying the Batwa experience. Yes, of course, a famous one. Tadeusz was saying, for me, what is amazing are the dances, food, and ceremonies. Mostly, the A ceremony summarizes all what a culture has. Yeah. And Frank is saying the Imbalu cultural experience in Mbale is worth the tour, though many are not exploring it. Yeah, cool. I know that one. Great. So let me move on. Let me just read out one more thing. So Into Africa is saying, I also think the southwestern corner, Kigezi, still has some hidden treasures. Just last week, we drove into this village, and for the first time, I was happy to not see a stage performance. This was somewhere deep in Ruija, with some of the most epic views I've seen. There doesn't seem to be a road even. Yeah, no, I mean the Kigezi area, of course, is quite visible in let's say it's one of the most visited areas of Uganda, but still, even there are so many places that are great, that are not so dominant on the, let's say, on the mind of many tour operators. So yeah, also worth exploring. Cultural Museum at Igongo, yes. And Stefan is saying, for me, it's not necessarily the living within and experience it from within, but getting firsthand information from people from the communities, but operating within a safe space. Yeah, I agree. So in that sense, the interpreter or the guides can really make a difference, isn't it? Let me just share with you a number. So the UNWHTO generally they did a survey across all countries, and they said that generally 40% of the tourists worldwide can be considered cultural tourists, in the sense that they are interested in doing cultural activities during a visit. But very few actually look at cultural tourism as their primary reason to travel. So that's only 10% of that 40%, so roughly 4% of all the tourists. So it's so many people are interested in cultural tourism, but most of the time it's a bit of a side activity, or it's one of the activities, and it's integrated into let's say an itinerary with other types of activities as well. And I think in Uganda that is the case as well. Although I do think that small minority of, let's say, 4% of all the travelers that focuses on culture as a primary interest is still a high number if you look at all the tourists. So it's still worthwhile to also look at that specific group. So Theo, may I ask you how at Kara-Tunga do you like, what is the role of authenticity, and how do you make sure that the activities that you offer, that they don't feel, let's say, staged or fake or awkward? Like how do you make sure that those activities feel real?
Yeah, no, a good question, Lex. I think also somebody already mentioned it in the chat. I think Stefan Friedrichsen also said about, for me, it's not necessarily the living within. It's more like being with somebody who can explain and have like a natural experience. I think for us, we've been having people with different needs, let me call it like that. Some people are coming here as anthropologists. Some people come here, or I call them maybe fast food tourists. They want to go snap, and continue. And other people are here having a bit more time. I think that's a typical adventure tourist or backpackers or people usually on the private trips. And everybody has a different, I think, perception about authenticity. Some people, they say they want something authentic and they mean something from the past. They have seen something on the photo and they want to see that, and they think that's then the authentic picture. But culture changes, time changes, and some people really say, I just want to see how people are living, and to learn about what they are doing in a daily life. And I think that's for me what I relate to authenticity is seeing it as it is, and not fabricating something that's not there. And I think that's also what our clients have been appreciating, that our guides are as they are. They've been usually born in a village, and they can really share how life was from their birth up to now. But also taking them on a walk in a community, and learning, of course, how people are doing going about their daily life. I think for me, authenticity, and sometimes I battle with this with clients as well, is things are what they are. And if you are looking for an experience from the past, that's of course like I said, like a museum trip almost for me. I say then it's good to go to a museum or a cultural center, and that's where you can look at, hey, how did people live in the past? They can maybe go to a museum like we have in Kampala, other places, where they will mimic the life they had before, for example. But I think for Uganda, we are quite lucky that I think we still have a very rich living culture. Also, times are changing. I think for Karamoja's sake, or because our conflict here, we are still in development as well, in our developing country. And that's why people can still visit those traditional communities. But still, if you go to northern Uganda, for example, the food culture is so extremely rich. Doesn't matter if you go to the city or you go to a traditional village, that's already part of the culture, and that's something people are really proud of. So I think it depends how much time somebody has. That's how deep you can go into the culture experience. If you don't have time to move to a traditional homestead and meet people in the rural communities, then of course sometimes difficult to have that traditional setting experience, but you can still go to a cultural center, I'm sure, and eat traditional foods and learn about how people go about their life. But I think in general, the more time you have, the more deeper you can go into the culture, and that's also, I think, how more you can absorb yourself and learn about it. So authenticity for me is how it is. For me at the moment, this is how authentic I am. I call it, I'm not wearing a sheet around my trousers, I'm trying to, I love my culture. I put on my hat on occasions, but I will not wear this one throughout the day. And if you go to the community, you will have our young shepherds who are proud of who they are. That's how they dress, and that's how authentic they are. So that's for me. Maybe authenticity is based, I think, sometimes on what things people think it's authentic, and sometimes I also battle a bit with that perception. But in general, the more time you have, the more time you want to invest in your experience, I think the more deeper you can go in the culture, and you can seek for what you are looking for. So that's how fake and how how clear I can make my statement a bit.
And Theo, so I'm receiving a question also. Someone is saying, like, how do you balance the needs of the people with that want to stay with you for quite a while and really want to immerse themselves in the local setting? How do you balance that with the fact that there's also just tourists who want to be there briefly and just take some pictures and then get out? Because I can imagine that you still need those type of tourists as well from a business perspective, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think this is also when we started developing this cultural experiences. There was a discussion we had with the community. I remember the first community we worked with. We still work with them up to today, and we also went through quite some learning journey. Whereby in the beginning we said, hey, we have an awesome opportunity. Tourists want to come here. They want to see your traditional dances. They want to have a walk with you in the village. And they're like, oh yes, bring them over, you know, but not realizing like people also have their daily lives in a community. Up to the moment, clients becoming many, and also they're like, hey, we cannot have people in our village full time because we also need to prepare food for our children. We also have our duties. We need to go for business to the market. And that's actually when we started also talking a bit more to the community and say, what is for you the right time to come here? And what's for you the right way to conduct activities? So within a big homestead, there we organized a cultural group. They organized themselves together with us, whereby they were happy to host clients at certain times of the day for people who just want to come and maybe have a cultural dance and have a small stroll in the community. But within that group, there were also members who said, for me, I'm happy to host them for a night in my home, and we can cook together, etc. And also the same is for the shepherds of those the same group. So it was a bit like an interaction with the community, whereby we actually both were growing in tourism. For them, they also did not know anything about tourism. They saw a blooming opportunity of making an income. And at the same time, also Kara-Tunga was seeing the same. Hey, we have an opportunity. Tourists want to come. They can contribute also to the community. But during the course of our relationship, we built somehow rules and regulations for this. So within that, we have an opportunity for people who don't have much time to still have an activity, but then within the time the village allows them to come, so they can still continue with their daily life, because we know the pandemic, tourists can also not be there one day, so it's not good to fully rely on them. And for those who have more time and want to immerse, there are also members who are really happy to receive them and host them for a longer period. And besides, for example, this, we also do really customized trips. The majority of clients we have, they call us or they send us an email to say, I want to go to this community. I want to see how people do this tradition here. I want to compare with this one here. So we have done trips of 3 weeks whereby somebody sits on the back of a motorbike and sits and goes to community villages, whereby we introduce ourselves to the elder of the local leadership and ask if we are allowed to be in the community. And somebody actually experienced something totally different and totally unique compared to something we organize more on regular basis. So that's how we do it. I think it's all about having the conversation, but also especially we've been building capacity and raising the knowledge of the communities also during the Adventure Tourism project to make them realize that these community leaders, like, what are the opportunities of tourism, but also what are the risks of tourism. And then speaking about over-tourism, we've compared, for example, I say bad experiences of the tourism going on in the southwest Omo Valley of Ethiopia. We showed a video to the leaders of this cultural group, 17 cultural groups in the region. And they saw how tourists will come, stop with the car in front of the village, don't even introduce, don't even greet, don't even shake a hand, starts making photos of the people in the village. The community has been impressing them with extraordinary designs because they know every photo or they will give money. The photographer gives money to the person, and the more extravagant, properly, the more photos of the more money you will receive. So those people have totally changed their traditional wearing of attire based on making the best photo, not based on who they are. And this is something we showed to this community tourism group leaders, and they were all shocked. I still have some photos and a video from that session. And after that, we asked them, what do you think about what's happening here? And what do you think is best for you to avoid a situation like this? And that's how I think we're going to discuss later. They came up with some do's and don'ts for tourism in Karamoja at large. But I think if you are in a community like us here, or any other community where tourism is brand new, and people don't know the risks as well as the opportunities, it is also possible to go wrong, and that the tourism might take over the community, and the community might forget the daily life, might forget that besides a tourist who might come today, and in low season there's no tourists, they forgot to cultivate the garden, so they have nothing to harvest. So I think this is something very important while people are developing this community tourism experiences, to raise awareness of the risks especially as well, and let the community make a decision based on knowledge, and not based on only the opportunity. So
yeah,
that's a bit
yeah, this is great to hear, and especially indeed comparing the comparing the Omo Valley to the situation in Uganda. I think, of course, like the amount of visitors in Kara-Tunga is far smaller than the one in the Omo Valley, but also some of the Maasai experiences in Kenya and Tanzania, for example. And indeed, like now is the time to act upon it, right? And now is the time to create awareness of the importance of structuring tourism in the right way. And yeah, so in a few slides from now, we're also going to look into how you did that in Kara-Tunga together with the communities.
Maybe I'm
yeah,
seeing a comment here, I think, from Emma saying cultural commoditization has become a challenge.
Yeah.
And how to ensure authentic cultural tourism, how can this be addressed? I think this is a bit where I spoke about, that yes, of course, if in a community, a rural community where opportunities are not unlimited, then tourism as a commodity is an opportunity for the community. Where, for example, you can see here, especially in Kara-Tunga, the climate is really affecting people's livelihoods through, how to call it, failing of crops, people's livestock, their traditional bank account is also depleted. You can see there's challenges now with I think land. Same is for our brothers and sisters of the Maasai. So these communities who are especially nomadic communities are struggling quite at the past life of nomadism, and survival of their livestock, and being able to move freely and look for the best pasture and water for them, is really disappearing. And at the same time, the climate's also changing so dramatically that they are forced to do agriculture, but at the same time they're not succeeding because they sometimes don't have even the capacity to do it in a smart, climate smart agricultural way. And they're losing actually a lot of their crops. So yes, tourism is for them really a supplementary income, and then yes, it becomes a commodity, of course. But I think in our case, we also try to make it, how to call it, a decision of the community, and an informed decision if they want to participate or not, and then if so, in what kind of way. And not that we force them to commodify it and make money for our sake. I think the priority for Kara-Tunga is always what is the interest of the community, what are their needs, and what are their do's and don'ts from them, and then we are the ones now to communicate it to the tourists, and that's, at least we try to safeguard it. And authenticity wise, I think that's what I said. Authenticity is how it is. So if the community wants to build a modern home, fair enough, that's what they want, because they're now improving their livelihoods. I think that's even something we should appreciate and not demotivate.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, indeed, that's what Emma indeed raised, that commoditization of culture for the sake of tourism. That is a risk, and indeed, I think if you do it the way that how you explain it, Theo, I think you at least are aware of that, and well, I think you actually discussed this already a little bit in your story, Theo. And I think for the sake of time, let me not ask this to the people in the audience right now, but there's just one thing that I wanted to highlight, and I think that is also what you mentioned, is that when we talk of authenticity in cultural tourism, generally people might mistake that for like looking for something that is pure or something that has an essence and that has been spoiled over the years. Whereas in fact, societies and culture change. They change all the time. I mean, matoke is not an indigenous plant in Uganda. I think if you look at the people of Karamoja, how they what we consider what is traditional right now is very different from how they actually looked, let's say 50 years ago. But also that example of matoke, like many of the Bantu cultures in Uganda, they for them a crop like matoke is so important, and they've built their entire livelihood on matoke, or almost their entire livelihood. But still, matoke is an introduction to Uganda. And so things change, and that is not necessarily a bad thing. Often it's a good thing. But many tourists also know about this. So when we think of authenticity, instead what tourists are looking for is the feeling that even if they wouldn't have been there, if the tourists wouldn't have been there, that is how life would have been. So I remembered when I visited you, Theo, in I think it was near Moroto, where we went for a village tour, and people were doing those traditional games. And at some point I was feeling like, well, how do we know whether those games would also have been played by them if we weren't there? Like, do they only play those games and this singing only because we are here? And in fact, when we drove back towards Moroto, we actually passed by a number of villages where they were doing the exact same games and the exact same dances and singing the same songs without any tourists present. So in that sense, that was indeed that authentic thing that we were looking for. And so yeah, I guess that is what authenticity is about. But of course, there's always exceptions. There's always tourists who might look for something different. But most tourists, they will just realize that they just want to know how life is at this moment. Now, so we did a little bit of brainstorming on tips and tricks on cultural tourism activities, and especially the community-based cultural tourism activities, of which there are so many in Uganda. And so here there's just 10 of them, but and of course we can add many to them. But let me just focus on these right now. So people often want to know how ordinary life is like. There is a subsection of cultural tourism that focuses on specific events, like a harvest season or a specific ceremony or something like that. And of course, that is also worthwhile exploring. But many tourists, they just want to have this immersive experience where they experience how life is like in an ordinary way. And I think we mentioned this before as well. Make sure that the guides are properly trained, because the guides really make that interpretation that tourists might not be able to make by themselves, and guides might also be able to play that bridging role between the community and the tourists. And I am really convinced that by, let's say, 1 week or 2 weeks or 1 month of training, a site guide can already have improved his or her skills significantly. make sure that the activity makes sense. Make sure that it's packaged well. So make sure it's clear, it is exciting, it is something different, and that it is that tourists know what is in it and what is not, and also make sure that it has a reasonable price, in the sense that it should be based on a reasoning. And I think also what some of the common challenges are with community-based tourism is that there are often like those well, let's say bottom-up approaches where somebody has a good idea, and together with other people in the community they build a guest house, and then next to that there's a cultural group doing performances and all that, and then all those things are arranged, but there's hardly any tourists passing by. So having an understanding of how tourism works and how those flows of tourists move throughout the country, and how you can tap into those linkages, that or tap into those streams of tourists, that is important. So in that sense, reach out to tour operators and make sure that you are that you have your digital marketing in place, and make sure that that people know where you are. Make sure that you are visible. And also cultural tourism activities. I think this is also something I mentioned in the beginning. There's hardly anybody that would travel, let's say, for 10 hours just to have a cultural tourism activity of half a day and then travel back. Now, often it is combined with other activities, or let's say a cycling tour or a game drive or a hike, or and of course you can also have those let's say those packages where you only do cultural tourism activities. Yes, that's possible, but generally these types of packages are rare, and the ones that combine cultural tourism activities with other types of tourism activities are way, far more common, and there's a good reason for that, and that is because cultural tourism just lends itself very well for combining with other types of tourism activities. Now, make sure that the community benefits from it as a whole. So not only specific individuals, not only the people who work for this initiative, but make sure that also the community at large benefits from it, because otherwise you will get into trouble. And I think there's so many examples of this where this hasn't happened, where the influx of tourists has only led to animosity between community members. So make sure that there's clear agreements with the community on how to do this, and maybe Theo later on can also elaborate a little bit on how Kara-Tunga has done this with the communities throughout Karamoja. And now the seventh point is I think also important, and that is that most of the time tourists will try to be respectful. Of course, we all know people who weren't very respectful when they were doing those activities, but generally most people will try to be respectful towards the cultural views of the local people, right? And I think you can also expect this, but it also goes the other way around, and I think that this is also something that is worth mentioning, as let's say the people that come to visit you might have a completely different culture, might have a completely different set of viewpoints, and so that might be, let's say, culinary preferences, it might be religious ideas, it might have to do with sexuality, it might have to do with like privacy, like how is it okay to just stand very close to each other, or do you need some space? And I think you as when you offer those types of activities, it is also important to realize that it might be quite overwhelming for visitors to be at that specific site, and they might have their own viewpoints that also need to be respected. Now, point 8 is also, I think, it provides opportunities for cultural tourism activity providers. The domestic market that we all saw was growing during the COVID period and also after. More and more Ugandans travel for the sake of leisure, and especially the middle class. And these type of tourists are often very much interested in cultural events, because generally, and I might be exaggerating now, but generally domestic tourists might not be as interested in seeing how ordinary life is, because they might be way more familiar with that, but they are often more interested in specific events. So, for example, in Kara-Tunga, there's this annual event where people from all over Kara-Tunga come to join and talk about things, but also participate in dances and singing and those type of things. And I think these types of activities have a lot of potential also for attracting domestic tourists, and not only tourists that maybe are linked to that region themselves, but also from other parts of Uganda. And I think considering domestic tourists in cultural tourism is important. And then I think this is a bit I think it's a bit obvious, but still it is worth to realize this once more, that it's important to host the activity at a place that is visually appealing. And so, for example, if you do, let's say, bead making, and you want it to attract tourists in the future as well, don't make those beads in this dark manyata or this dark hut where it's hard to see what is happening, because maybe the tourists might enjoy it at that very moment, but it's difficult to make good pictures for it at such a place. So in that sense, for example, just go outside of that hut and it already looks more appealing to people who weren't there. Of course, you might you would want to make it as authentic as possible, but still sometimes there's little things that you can adjust to make sure that it also looks good on camera. And finally, last tip is of course, arts and crafts, souvenirs. They create extra revenue, and so in that sense it's definitely a good idea to offer those, but make sure that they are made of good quality and that they are original. So don't offer the exact same thing as everybody else. And probably the most important is make sure that it is linked to the activity and it comes with a story, and that the guides also know how to tell the story, because otherwise it's difficult to really sell this to tourists. And maybe just an 11th tip is also to just make sure that you get feedback from tourists. Make sure that you ask tourists whether they liked it and what could be improved, because you need to stay curious for improving your activity. And it's quite simple to just ask for feedback. I mean, you can do this in a survey at the end, but you can also just ask, like, what did you think of it? Is there anything we could have improved? It's a simple question, I think. Theo, may I ask, do you agree with this list of tips? Are there any other things that you would like to add to this?
No, Lex, I think the good thing, I think we have the same taste. And maybe for other people to know, I also, for sure, we've been seeing many places in Kara-Tunga, but Lex and me and some other people, we traveled also the Warianoma Trail on bicycles. It's part of the national cycling trail developed of adventure tourism. And I think during that trip, I also noticed that Lex also likes to travel, to move like me, and having these experiences in the natural setting, and of course to have a appealing surrounding. But I think, yeah, I think all the points are really spot on, Lex. I think in my next points, I saw my points are coming. I think I will add a bit more in depth about, especially the benefit sharing. I think that's very important if it comes to this kind of tourism.
Yeah, cool. Okay, let's move on. So I just wanted to add a picture. I think one of the things I like about your work with Kara-Tunga is also how you capture this and make sure that it is also that it also appeals to people online and people who may never have heard of Kara-Moja. They might still run into some of the content that you develop, the videos, the pictures, and maybe also let me see. Let me actually move on to this topic. How do you like? I think if there's one thing that I believe that Kara-Tunga is doing really well, and there's many, believe me, but the one thing that always stands out for me is this market linkages. How Kara-Tunga is being able to have this community-based activity, but also appeal to visitors from far beyond Kara-Moja. And you know how tourism works, you know how marketing works, and you know how to make your activities appealing to other tourism companies. But on the other hand, you still ensure that it also benefits the local communities. Can you elaborate a little bit on this? And maybe this is also a moment that you can maybe answer the question of Stefan in the chat on how can you make sure that it's also like that's a remote region like Kara-Moja. How do you make sure that people actually decide to go all the way to Kara-Moja? How can the people in West Nile make sure that tourists come to that region? So a whole list of questions, but I'm sure you can deal with it.
Okay, yeah, no, thanks. Let me first start maybe a bit with I think Stefan also has some questions. Well, what do you think is best to do, Lex? I have some questions from Stefan. I think about especially about guides. Maybe there's something Adrine can also answer. Would be awesome. A bit more guide related, expectation management, etc. Yeah, I think that would be great. I think let me focus a bit on the marketing part. I think for our side, I maybe just been a bit lucky and blessed. Maybe my background is brand design, marketing, communication. So at least I picked a leaf from my past working experience. But what I can give maybe to others, I think it's very important. When we just started, we didn't start like, hey, we have 20 project activities and now we need to market them. It really went naturally, where we had a hike on a mountain. We did not even have a village experience, and somebody was interested in joining us. The moment we had done that hike, the same clients wanted to do another activity, and that's how we grew actually Kara-Tunga on a more organic way. And especially where we had the opportunity, there where our first guest actually asked us for what else can we do, and they became actually our first tester of guinea pigs, and that's how we've been developing these trips that really are matching the needs of our clients, as well as being able to build this relationship with the community. But I think what's very important in marketing wise, your product needs to be really good. I remember when we started actually developing products and having clients, and then we marketed those ones using the reviews from the clients. It was not so much we had no clients and we started marketing ourselves like, hey, we have something awesome. So I think what I've learned is make sure you at least have tested your activities, develop them, get your first reviews, and then market it with full confidence to the outside world. And in Uganda, we are quite blessed to have an organized tourism platform, our Association of Uganda Tour Operators. I think there's like 5 to maybe 800 tour operators registered nowadays. They're really much, and they all come together at certain times in the year. They're all in one WhatsApp group. They're all members of the same club. So it's quite easy to market yourself, but it's also very important to make sure it's quality, because all these people also talk to each other. And that's going to be your first point of contact. Is not going for the most far a travel agent in the US. It's good for you to start from within, the low-hanging fruits, and make sure your local Uganda tour operators are the ones first selling you. And getting now your reviews and your client base before you now start spreading the message beyond. Of course, it's important also, I think we've learned to really be so much online present. If you think, we also had some changes in our organization, but if you now go to our Instagram account, I'm very proud of, I think it really reflects who we are and doesn't only reflect that we do cultural tourism, but also behind the scenes information, how we work with the communities, how we have our holistic approach, a restoration of the environment, doing cultural heritage protection activities. I think it's very important to have the story and not only the activity. And if you do this in an organic way, you think also through your company, and make sure your unique selling point is not only a dance in the community, but also all the work, how it benefits the community, how the money is used. You have the impact stories. This is where tour operators at the moment are looking for. So if you talk to a tour operator, I've been to a couple of expos this year. I think people are so happy to learn about the social impact, the environmental impact. That's what people are looking for. And I think as long as you have your story right, you have your recommendations, you are on to something. Okay. Yeah, so maybe that's my short leave. So get your story together, make sure you have the footage, make sure you test and get your reviews, and start with low-hanging fruits within the country. Try to market yourself to those tour operators, because for them, they're looking for amazing experiences for their tourists. Maybe the next point, if I can jump, Lex, is that enough about marketing?
Oh, yes, it is. But, it is.
Okay. Otherwise, I think we can give a 2 hours session about it. But I think revenue sharing is so important for us. We many travel agents, DMCs, tour operators, they rely on us actually. So they expect the moment they book with us an activity, that the clients will arrive at the destination, they get a guide, they're briefed, and they go to the community, and the community is happy to see them. So we need to build this relationship and maintain it very well, and that's actually our job as an activity provider. To do so, one of the most important things is always about the money. You can have a fantastic relationship, you can talk to them, you can drink a beer on a campfire, but at the end of the day, it's also about benefit, and this needs to be fair and also to be transparent. So what we have done over the years, we have signed memorandum of understanding with all these communities we work with, the ones who are benefiting economically from our activities. And we do this because we want them to be able to hold us accountable for our promises, as well as us also for promises they have made to us. And also this also helps us to avoid any discussions. And this happens very easy when you just have a verbal agreement. Believe me, you will always have challenges. So for us, what we have done, we sit down with the community and really explain also how we have priced our activities. Simply as that. Because for them, they might say, hey, if Maya wants $500 for the activity, but we will first bring them back and say, okay, if somebody comes to Uganda, what do you think they will spend on something like this? And as a company, we have our own policy that 75% of what we receive for cultural activities goes to the community. So we really make them part of the process of developing the price, rather than having a prize and then saying this is what you get. Because if you do that, you are 100% sure going to get challenges. And the same is for our guides. So we pay our guides based on the activities, based on the length, based on the difficulty level, and they also sign for that one. And if they don't like it, they can also have opportunity to share it with us. But we also have a revenue sharing model based on the community at large. So we do activities, but we also have built eco camps. We call them conservation camps in usually untouched areas with rural communities. And from every person staying there, a percentage goes actually back to the community fund. And for example, at the moment, we are about to disperse our first revenue sharing. And this actually to appreciate the entire community, not only the guides of the cultural group, but everybody in the community to host us, but also for them to feel the benefits out of us being in the community. And this money will be spent on socio-economical activities within a community chosen by themselves. Then on an even larger scale, we are about to start actually developing an accommodation facility in Kidepo Valley National Park. And this is a community lodge whereby even we share our revenues with a landscape level association. And this association takes care of mitigation of human-wildlife conflicts. So you can see here, we work with the guides, we work with a village or cultural group, we work with a community at large, maybe on sub-county level, and then we even work with a landscape approach. So it's for us very important because we want them to be happy that we're with them, not only in social aspect, but also in economical aspect, and eventually also to appreciate the environment, for example, when you talk about the forest, the wildlife, and also for them to benefit out of and appreciate the how to call it, the culture maybe as well. That's also something they are now earning a living out of, and where back in the days for Kara-Moja, it was not something you would proudly promote in the rest of Uganda. Our culture was not so well how to call it, appreciated by people outside of the region. That's and the reason we do this is also we need to live together in harmony with the communities, also to sustain the business. And that's the funny relationship of the good relationship of a tour operator like us being within a community. Because whatever happens, they will come to our gates. I'm here in the middle of the region, and they will complain. But if you are a travel agent, maybe in the US, you don't have the ability you don't have this direct connection with the community. So if somebody of a tour operator comes, makes a mistake in the village and disappears, he will not care. He might not even come back to the same village. But for us, we have the day-to-day accountability to make sure we live in harmony with the communities. And that's why we have all these structures in place to make sure if anything happens, we have recorded, we have signed an agreement, and they can hold us accountable as well as we can hold them accountable. Yeah.
Thanks, Theo. And I think one of the things that you also do is you communicate prior to the or during the arrival of tourists of how to interact respectfully with the local community, right? So you have this interaction where from both sides, both from the community side as well as the tourist side, expected of what proper behavior is, isn't it?
Yeah, true. We have written it in I think on our website, but also our guides. It's as much as we always try to do, we try to at least to brief the clients as well to manage expectations. It doesn't always go 100% perfect, but at least they are aware that for us here, we're living in this community, it's really different than somebody flying in from a different country who has never seen a rural community like this. So it's good for them to ensure they are bridging this. That's really the role of the guide.
Yeah. And so is the so there's also this Kara-Moja Tourist Manifesto, right?
Yeah,
and
correct.
that is, can you explain a little bit what that is?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Actually, in our journey developing tourism here, I think you also heard in my first story. It's for us was so much important that the community gets has a voice and gets a platform, especially to also make a decision. But for them, they do not have the direct connection to a travel agent or a tourist who is booking a tour. Hopefully, in the future, when people are more tech savvy and they will be able to also connect directly, maybe through a booking platform. But for now, they're relying also on us to communicate for them, and we are so much proud actually that we have developed this manifesto. What the 17 community group leaders we work with in the region have written down. With our coaching, we did not develop it ourselves. We just showed them the video from the Omo Valley in Ethiopia, and we asked them, so how do you see the tourism future within Kara-Moja? So you can check our website. That's it's written down there. You can also Google Kara-Moja Tourism Manifesto, and this is what the community, how they see tourism being done here. Based on that, actually, we turn it around, and we also wrote a travel pledge. And this is something what we ask all our tourists booking with us to sign before they book a tour. So if you book a tour for us, you'll get an email saying, hey, this is the manifesto from the community. Please sign the pledge to adhere their promise of their how to call it, their do's and don'ts in the community. And that's how we raise awareness from the tourists actually coming here to just be more conscious of where they are and what the impact is in these communities, but also how they can have a positive impact, because the community also clearly has written down that they also see tourism as an opportunity to develop.
And just a question, like this picture, was it taken before or after the manifesto?
This one, I think depends on where I am at the moment. Respectfully.
Okay. Sorry.
I removed the nipples.
Yeah, no, I had to put it in there. No, so let's move on. So Adrine,
Yes, please.
I'm curious to hear from you. So Matoka Tours has committed itself to making tourism guiding more inclusive towards women, and of course, Matoka Tours has done this with many other tour operators in Uganda. But from your experience as a trainer in that, what do you believe needs to be done to ensure that more women can become tourist guides and really thrive in it?
Once again, thank you, Lex. What can be done to make the tourist guiding profession become more accessible? Number one point is we need adequate government commitment towards this. The tourism master plan acknowledges gender awareness, but it does not address gender issues. There are no measures or targeted actions that contribute to achieving this. So in my view, I think we need clear policy guidelines on how this can best be achieved. Then further still on the side of government, I think incentives should be provided to organizations or companies that are ready to empower and add female tourist guides to their pool of guides. And this will keep them encouraged, and it will also motivate other organizations to join the drive. Further still, I think accommodation facilities should also think about having gender-sensitive accommodation for the guides, for the female guides, because before the profession was male-dominated, I think the providers did not think about the female gender. Oftentimes, we are checked in facilities, you find you're sleeping here, the next person is a male, and of course, you're sharing the bathrooms. Worse still, when you get in the bathroom, there is no clear disposal of maybe your used sanitary towel, we are forced to carry them like to the next stop where we can find a proper way of disposing them, of which makes us uncomfortable. So I think the accommodation providers, they should think having gender sensitive accommodation for the females. Then also, I think there should be strict laws on the sexual harassment, and also provide places where culprits can be reported. Oftentimes, our girls are taken advantage of when they are in the field, especially from our male counterparts, sadly, and also from the tourists themselves. And for fear of stigma, harassment, lack of the next job, they fear to report. For example, if you report a tourist, you fear that maybe he's going to give a bad review and your employer will not give you a chance to go on another trip. So I feel there should be strict laws, awareness about this, because these are the things that discourage our ladies to continue pursuing this career. Then also, there should be more mentorship seminars, exclusive girls boot camp, where the female tourist guides, both senior and upcoming ones, can meet and share experiences, encourage one another. I hope this will build their confidence and self-esteem while they are providing the tourist guiding services. Also, media should showcase our successful women in tourist guiding. And I believe this will change the mentality of the public and their families about how they look at women. They should look at tour guiding like any other job that brings money to the family and contributes to the country's GDP. The society has always looked at women as a weaker sex, as people who are supposed to be in the background, taking care of children, cooking, gardening. So I think when the media showcases the successful women in tourist guiding, the people's mindset will change and they will start looking at opportunities, giving women opportunities in this male-dominated profession. Then also, I think that we should have more skilling programs, especially in driving manual cars, because these are the vehicles that are used mostly to transport tourists. But unfortunately, as most of the guides do not have, most of the female guides do not possess these driving skills, and this limits them from getting jobs. Tour operators prefer to employ someone who can guide and drive at the same time. It becomes expensive for him and the package to employ two people, a driver and a guide. So I believe if girls are given opportunities in more opportunities in driving skills, they will acquire the skills that will make them competitive in the job market. Then also, I believe we need more dialogues and mediation programs amongst the sector players, the tour operators, the hotel owners, and all other key players on the tourism value chain, because it will make no meaning empowering women, giving them all the skills necessary for them to do the tourist guiding work, and the sector players are not ready to receive them, to offer employment opportunities. Then also, I feel as we empower female guides in this male-dominated profession, our male counterparts, these are the tourist guides, should be involved. This will make them appreciate the program, and when the girls are ready and finally they want to join the field, these are people that will receive them. We still need them. We cannot work in isolation. We still need them. We still need their expertise. We still need them. We still need their guidance in the field. Lastly, hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, your last.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes. Lastly, we just have to keep the drive on. The retention rate might be low, but we don't have to be discouraged, because along the way, ladies are diverted by many other things. At some point, she has to get married. We have to keep the drive on. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Adrine. No, I fully agree with you, and I think, especially also when we talk about, well, female guides in well, the topic of cultural tourism and community-based tourism that we're talking of today, it is so crucial to have the female perspective as well. Like sometimes you come across an initiative that works with only men, and I mean, there's many reasons why we should all work together and encourage women to become guides. And of course, there's so many things that hopefully will improve in making sure that they can do so safely. But specifically in cultural tourism, we are missing out on so many things if we only hear the male perspective. In many societies within Uganda, many different cultural areas, there's quite a different set of things that is considered the female domain and the male domain, and I think it's really essential to have that female domain also being explained by female interpreters. So for me, that is just one of the many reasons why it is important to encourage women to become guides, and why it is important to well, make sure that they can really become guides in a safe place. So let me see. We have about 15 minutes left to this for this webinar, and maybe I'm requesting to add maybe 5 or 10 minutes more, but I'm planning to keep this webinar within about 2 hours. So maybe 15 minutes more, 20 minutes more, and that will be the end of this webinar. But a question to everyone in the audience. Sometimes people talk about guides as if guiding is one profession and every single guide is doing the exact same work. Whereas in fact, if we look at guiding, there's different distinctions that you can make. And probably the most important one is the distinction between, on the one hand, site guides, and on the other hand, tour guides. And I do think it is worthwhile focusing on this distinction for a moment. So just a question to the audience: what do you believe is the difference between a site guide and a tour guide? So please use the chat to elaborate on this, and then I will just read out some of the answers. Because obviously, if we know the difference between site guides and tour guides, you can also focus a little bit more on the type of skills and the type of knowledge that they need to possess to be good in being a site guide or a tour guide. I'm not sure if people are typing now. For the sake of time, let me actually move on to well, how at least we look at this distinction. And of course, we are curious to hear more about your idea. So, actually, Stefan is saying a site guide has very specific knowledge about the people, the challenges, the beauty, and the way of life of a specific place. And Laika is saying site guides are based at the actual site. Yeah, and I think both of you are very much correct. So site guides have specialist knowledge of a specific place and are based near that site. So this could be, well, those people at a specific community-based initiative. It could be UWA rangers at a specific national park. Could be a guide at the National Museum. So these are all site guides. And of course, it would be helpful for those site guides if they know more about what is happening at other tourism sites. But they need, if there's one thing they need, is specialist knowledge of that specific place. Whereas tour guides have generalist knowledge and they travel with tourists from place to place. So I think this also is similar to what Williams is saying. Specialize at a specific site. Thaddeus says so they stay at the attraction, and so Thaddeus is also saying a simple way, a site guide is one of the types of categories under tour guides. That is something that I personally don't really agree with, in the sense that a site guide is a type of guide and a tour guide is a type of guide. But tour guides are not like they are also they are just one of the many types of guides. Laika saying tour guide can be remote or mobile booked through a tour operator, probably picks you at the airport, most likely also a driver. Yes, I agree with that general statement. Yeah, so I think we now know this distinction, and so this is maybe my personal opinion, but I believe that for cultural tourism, site guides are crucial. It is very difficult to be a tour guide and have all the specific knowledge of all the different activities that you might do at a cultural itinerary. Because for a tour guide, it is really difficult to have all the expert knowledge of this community and that community and the history of this place and history of that place. Whereas, for example, in safari-based tourism, you often see that a tour guide is able to do the interpretation of many different national parks, for example. But in cultural tourism, it is really difficult to not have a site guide around, and often it's also a pity. For example, if tourists would do a cultural tourism activity without an interpreter or without a site guide, because it is often that interpretation that really makes the difference. So if you don't mind, I'm going to move to this slide. So when we look at the different skills of a guide, in, let's say, classic-based safari guides, so I think we all sort of know what we mean with this, like the tour guides that pick somebody up, international tourists often, pick them up from let's say Entebbe airport and then do let's say a 2-week itinerary around southwestern Uganda and visit different national parks. And in some of the national parks or cultural sites, you might work with a side guide, but generally it's this driver guide who does the guiding throughout this journey. The skill set and traits for this person is quite different from the skills and traits of a cultural side guide. I see a little spelling error there, and it's also quite different from, let's say, the skills and traits that a guide needs to have that is focusing on cycling or hiking. And so sometimes when we look at training for the guiding industry, this distinction is not really made. If you look at the assessment packages that are those ATPs that are established by DIT in collaboration with USAGA, this distinction is not really made. Over there, sometimes I get the feeling that they are only talking of safari guides that are this general tour guide profession, whereas specific side guides, the skills and knowledge needed by a specific side guide is really like underdeveloped. So I also asked around a bit, and when we look at those different skills, this is what we came up with. And please, this is just a sort of an easy distinction, and of course there's many exceptions and all that. So for those classic tour driver guides. Sorry, let me just mute everyone. Okay, so for a traditional tour guide, a safari driver guide, it is, when we talk of the crucial things that they need to know or need to possess, or expertise they need to have. Of course, there's things like spotting and identifying wildlife and other natural things, and also storytelling about those things. And then when it comes to problem solving often revolves around human-wildlife conflicts. What do you do if there's an angry elephant in front of you? And of course, as most of them drive themselves, they need to know how to drive safely. They need to know the car mechanics. They need to know how to handle the road, and also how to operate in case of, let's say, a thunderstorm, or when the road is overflooded. And next to that, there's first aid skills and survival and bushcraft skills. And these type of things are really important, specifically for a safari driver guide. And then next to that, there's the type of soft skills that I believe every guide needs to have. So being good in communication, being reliable, customer service, interpersonal skills, and curiosity. And next to those things, of course, it's also important that they are physically fit, and they also need to be able to explain cultural stuff, and they need to have some language skills. And also, of course, handling conflicts between humans is important, but it's maybe not as important as the things that you see on the right. Now, if we move on to an adventure guide, so in this case, I'm talking of maybe hiking guides or cycling guides. What is absolutely crucial is that they have expert knowledge on that specific activity, and that they are very good in this. So let's say you're going on a cycling activity, and your guide doesn't know how to ride a bike, or how to maintain a bike and make sure that it's done safely. Doesn't know how to replace a tire. Of course, that is just elementary knowledge that an adventure guide needs to have, whereas maybe the tour guide doesn't need to know this for a bicycle, but maybe for a car, he or she needs to know. Physical fitness is probably more important, even though, of course, tour guides also need to have some physical fitness, but for most adventure guides, it's more important. And again, first aid and survival and bushcraft skills are important, next to all the soft skills that every guide needs to have. And then maybe lesser importance are the ability to spot and identify wildlife. And well, I think I don't need to read all of this out. But then if you compare that again to a cultural site guide, the skill set is again different. And there's some overlap, as you see. But for our cultural site guides, the most important knowledge-based domain is the ability to interpret and explain cultural behavior and traditions and cultural items and artifacts, and being able to explain where stories come from and some history aspects and those type of things. And probably language skills are also more important compared to the language skills of other types of guides. And of course, there's many exceptions to this, but as a general rule, I think language skills will be more important for this type of guide. And also being able to have being able to manage conflicts between different groups of people, whether it's tourists and the local community, or it is conflicts within the community between different groups in the community. Those things might be more important for a cultural guide than, let's say, human-wildlife conflicts. And also storytelling about different cultural aspects. That is absolutely crucial to a cultural site guide. And then, for example, physical fitness is, yes, it's important. And also first aid, yes, it is important. And if you want to train a site guide, I definitely do think it's a good idea to also include first aid in the mix. But it is probably less important than for adventure guides, for example. So I just wanted to make this distinction, and I believe there's other things that we can add to this, but I hope you agree with this. And if not, please let me know in the comments. Now, for adventure and cultural tourism, there's also a few resources that I wanted to share with you, because of course this webinar is just 2 hours, and of course we cannot cover everything. But I just wanted to mention this. So after I think next week we're going to let me mute everyone. Okay, so next week we're going to share the slides that you've seen today, and we're also going to share the recording of this webinar, so you can watch it back later. And then you can also use this presentation as hyperlinks, so you can actually click on the things that I'm listing here. And one of them is a standard that adventure guides need to be familiar with, at least according to ATA, and I think that's the association that we talked about in a previous webinar. And to me, that standard is quite good, and it's worthwhile exploring. And next to that, I also have some interesting resources on cultural tourism and community-based tourism by CBI. So they do all kinds of studies on how you can make tourism activities appealing, and how can you link it to general tourist markets. So these reports are quite interesting, and I think also the UNWHTO has interesting things to say about cultural tourism, and so please have a look at it if you feel like it. So those links are in the presentation, and I'm going to share the presentation with everybody. Now, finally, as with all the different topics of the webinars that we're hosting, we're currently developing training materials, and those training materials will become openly available to anyone. and they will be launched before the end of this year. And those materials, we developed them in collaboration with Ukerimu. And Ukerimu is an initiative that tries to make training material as openly available as possible. So if you're interested in training materials on hospitality, on product development, digital marketing, please have a look at ukerimuacademy.org. So also for cultural tourism and sustainable tourism and guiding, we will be developing modules, and these modules they include a combination of content on this specific topic, but it also includes a suggestion on how to train people on that topic. And so just as a little overview for cultural tourism and for sustainable tourism and for guiding, we believe that already within 1 day of training, you can have an introduction into those topics. So they won't teach you everything you need to know, but at least you get some understanding of what it is about. And those trainings would look a little bit like this. So in the case of sustainability, this is how it would look like. So first there would be a quiz on sustainability, and there would be a Q&A with an expert. You would look at sustainability standards and certification and understand what is in it. And then there's a whole list of case studies that you'll be analyzing and discussing, and then you would come up with a sustainability plan and would present it to others. So all the material that you need for this specific training is something that we're going to develop, and we will make it openly available. So for cultural tourism, it looks a little bit like this. So first, you're going to zoom into the domain of cultural tourism. Then there would be different case studies. Then you're actually going on a cultural tourism activity, and we will give you guidelines on how to organize this. And finally, there will be a product development exercise where people develop their own cultural tourism activity and share it with others in a presentation and receive feedback. And then finally, for guiding, would be a brainstorm on how guiding in adventure tourism and cultural tourism differs from other types of guiding. It would be a Q&A with an experienced adventure tourism guide. We do exercising on how to give good briefings. We zoom into little do's and don'ts, tips and tricks, and then there would be a storytelling exercise. So this is generally how it would look like. And again, we're going to launch this by the end of this year, or at least before the end of this year. And we will share this on social media as well. But I would be very interested to hear what you'll think about it when you go through the content. Just a quick reminder about the other webinars that we're going to host. So the next session will take place in 2 weeks from now, and we'll be focusing on cycling and running tourism. So cycling tourism is a specific niche that is growing incredibly fast in Uganda, and we will look into different types of cycling and how you as a tourism professional can tap into this. And we'll also look into a specific niche market of tourism that is running tourism. And this is something that is maybe new to many of you, but it has a lot of potential, not only in and around Mount Elgin or Kapchorwa district, because we will be having guest speakers from that area, but it has potential in other parts of Uganda as well. And so we're going to look into that. And then the last webinar will be on product development and on destination management and how you can work together in making adventure tourism work in Uganda. So I hope that this And I hope that this excites you, and I hope that you will all be present during those webinars as well. I also hope that we actually covered all the questions that were raised in the comments. Let me just have a quick look. Yeah. Yeah, please let me know in case there's anything that we haven't touched upon, and we will either focus on it in the next webinar, or we will discuss this with you privately. A small reminder to everyone: when this webinar is finished, it will open up a survey, and this survey for us is very important to know what you think about this webinar and how we can improve it in the future. So please, when we're going to close off this webinar, please fill in the survey, as that is really helpful to us. Now I would just like to thank Theo and Adrine for their presentations, for their contributions. I really appreciate the work that they do, and I also really appreciate the fact that they were here to elaborate on it. I hope that it has inspired all of you, and hopefully we can develop tourism together in Uganda in the right direction. Then finally, also just to all of you, to all the participants of this webinar, thank you so much for attending. I hope you find this enlightening, and hope to see you next time on December 1st. Okay, thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.